afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for my panel, and Fred will be along shortly. I'm going to be talking today about self-publishing and my journey, and I am Nicola Italia, and so this is what we're going to talk about today, self-publishing. I love this quote, and I'm going to start it off with this quote because this really is what self-publishing is all about. The good news about self-publishing is you get to do everything yourself. The bad news about self-publishing is you get to do everything yourself. And it really does encompass what self-publishing is about, and you'll see as we go forward today. So the beginning for me. So for me, it began with a blog. And we're going back a ways for the young'uns here. I'm going to date myself, but I was writing in the 2000s, and I was writing chapters on a blog. And so that's how it started for me. And then about 2004, I discovered a site which is still up. It's called Literotica. And Literotica, it sounds like it's erotic, but it encompasses a lot of different kinds. And I'm historic, romance, and mystery. But I did start writing on Literotica. And so basically what you do on Literotica is you kind of publish stories, but I was publishing chapters. And so as I was publishing chapters, there was a particular story that really resonated with the readers, and I started getting a lot of followers, and I won, I think, about 2 or 3 awards with this particular story. So yeah, it was kind of fun. And at this time, so now we're going to about 2013, a friend of mine said, hey, why don't you turn that really popular story of yours, and about that time it was like 13 chapters, he said, why don't you turn it into a book and publish it on Amazon? And I'm like, really? Publish it on Amazon? That sounds a little intense. And so that's what I did. So I took that December, my vacation, I combined all the chapters, I created a beginning because it really needed a tight beginning, and I created an ending because it didn't have an ending. And that book became The Sheik and the Slave. So this is my first novel. And again, it was published in 2014. Currently on Amazon today, it has 435 reviews, but it's doing really well. This is the most, I'll say, romantic, sexual of my books, but I don't tend to write that. Most of my books are kind of on the, as people, if you're familiar, it's on the calmer of the spice level. But this was my first novel, and so it holds a special place in my heart because it is the first one. And as you can see, it's been 10 years now. So I've been published and had my novels on Amazon, and this is going on the 10th year. So this is my, hey Fred. So this is my 10th anniversary as of February. So yeah, so let's talk about some terms. So what does self-publishing mean? Self-publishing, pretty self-explanatory. Self-publishing is the publication of a media by its author at their own cost without the involvement of a publisher. So that's basically, from our good buddy at Wikipedia, that's basically what self-publishing is. It's without a publisher. Some terms, just so you're familiar. A self-publishing author, it's an author that publishes a book at their personal expense. For an indie author, they're also called author publishers. It's an author who self-publishes to sell and grow a business. For myself, I use the two interchangeably. I'm a self-published author, but I'm also an indie. So I kind of use them interchangeably. But again, these are what I have found on the internet. Publishing service, author service, what's that? These are services that handle some or all of what it entails to create a book for the indies, the self-published. And what I mean by that, designers, editors, formatters, and we'll talk a little bit about those, but all of these are out there offered by different people for the author and at an upfront cost. So if you're going to, get a designer to do your cover, if you're going to edit your book, if you're going to format it, all of those are out there offered by somebody at a basic upfront cost, a fee. Traditional publishing. So when we're talking about traditional publishing, these again are enabling a author. They're going to publish their books. They're going to handle everything for the author. They take a large percentage of the revenue, and authors receive what's called that advance, which is 5 to 15 of the retail and form of royalties, as opposed to 25 to 95% when you're talking about self-published. If you're familiar with any sort of really, really big author out there, they're probably published by a first 5. When I'm talking about Stephen King, Danielle Steele, James Patterson, these big guys, these big authors, they're most likely published by the big 5. An independent publisher, they're basically just a smaller publishing company that, again, commissions books on behalf of the author, and they do it at their own expense. Again, at this time, the author is not paying anything. But when you get into the hybrid publishing, they combine elements of traditional, of self-published, and they have varying business models, and they function like a traditional publisher, but the author subsidizes the cost. Now, I'm not going to get into it today, but there's a lot of boutique publishing out there, and there's a lot of scams. I think somebody's talking about scams today at one of the panels, but that's you really got to be careful if you're an author out there and somebody is saying, "Oh, I'm going to publish your book, but I just need $5,000." No, that's not cool. That's not how it works. So self-publishing. Let's talk about some of the benefits of self-publishing. So somebody in here, you have the next great American novel in your head and you want to get it out there. You could literally write that book today, let's say, because it's going to be a lot. You're going to write that book today and you could publish it on Amazon tonight if you wanted to. It'll take about 24 to 48 hours to 72 to get it approved by Amazon. But that's how quick the publication time is for a self-published novel, a self-published author. It could be that quick. Higher royalty payments. Now, Amazon, where I'm published and what I use to get my book out there, when you're talking about Amazon and when you're talking about self-published, they have higher royalty payments. What I mean is if you're pricing your book at the $199, $299 and plus, you're getting 70% of a royalty. So that's immense. Building credibility. Again, if you're a self-published, author, indie author, you're basically kind of the master of your domain. If you are out there and you're on social media, if you are interacting with readers, you're building and crafting your brand as opposed to traditional. Well, let's get into traditional. So some of the benefits of traditional, upfront advance. Yes, it still happens. It's a little bit rare now, but if you secure that deal and you're with one of the big five and it's a big traditional publishing, you're going to get that advance for the first novel. There's a larger market reach. I mean, you're talking about huge publishing companies. They have the ability to put a marquee in Times Square. That's the kind of clout they have behind them. Support, again, of a publishing house. You have the support of a large publishing house that can get your book out there, that you can have foreign rights subsidiaries. They can really do stuff that it would be harder. It's possible, but it's a little bit harder for the self-published author. But there is a downside of possible creative loss. And this reminds me of a friend of mine who was a Western romance novelist, and she was with Harlequin. And she had written a novel and was in the process of getting it completed. And they sent her the cover. And she was like, "Oh, I don't like that cover." And she thought it didn't convey the story, and she just didn't think it was working. And they said, "Thank you so much. We're going ahead with the cover." So that's the kind of, it's a give and take. They have the power, but you do lose that creative license as opposed to a self-published author where, again, you're doing everything yourself. So you have the say in what your cover is going to look like. Okay, so I'm only published on Amazon, and there are lots and lots of places where you can upload your book. And many of you are aware of them: Barnes & Noble, Smashwords, Apple, it could go on and on. But I publish only with Amazon, and I'm going to give you a reason and some of the reasons of why I only publish with Amazon. So for the year, Amazon published over 91.5% of self-published books in the United States, 91.5. Though Amazon book sales only make up 10% of the company's profit, they're still the biggest sellers of books in the United States and worldwide. They generate 28 million worldwide from book sales. 28 billion. 28 billion, that's huge. Amazon controls between 50 and 80% of the book distribution in the United States. Amazon pays over 520 million in royalties each year to 1 million authors who have decided to self-publish through KDP, and KDP is the Kindle Unlimited. This statistic I put on here because I thought this was fascinating of where we're going. For the period of 2007 to 2018, that's a little over 11 years, excuse me, self-published titles surged from 3,800 to 1.4 million. That is crazy to me. So that's where we're going. So you've got the great American novel in your head and you want to write. Let's talk about it. Some steps to self-publishing. So choose your genre. Now, the genre, we're talking fiction for this sake, is wide and varying. We've got romance, and even under romance has a wide range. You've got historical that I write, you've got contemporary, you have paranormal, you have erotica, so even there, and then you've got what's called the clean romances, the Christian, the Amish kind, horror, sci-fi, wide range. So you choose your genre, you outline, do a quick little outline. If you ask 10 authors how they write, what it looks like, what their outline, you're gonna probably get 10 different responses. Everybody's different, it's what works for you. I do a basic outline, but I can tell you right now, I've definitely been in the middle of like 30, 40, 50,000 words, and I'm like, I don't know where these people are doing. I don't know what's going on. What do I do with these people? I've actually been in that recently where I stopped, set it aside, started another book, finished that one, and then went back to one. So it's common, but even with my outline, things happen. It just stops making sense, or you just don't know where you're going. So you write, you edit. Edit is a really important process. I know I've heard people say, "Oh, I have my brother, cousin, sister's friend edit." That's great, but for me, when you're putting a product out there and people are purchasing it, I take a lot of pride and respect in that. And so I do have it professionally edited. And it does cost, because a lot of the editors out there are doing per word. And so a good editing, and they're looking at continuity. Did she walk in the ballroom in a blue dress and then the next page she's a red dress, So they're looking at lots of things, but a good editor is going to cost, $300, $400, $500, $600 for a book. So you edit, you design. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but design, so important, and I'm going to touch on that in a minute. Formatting. I didn't even realize this before I became an author, but if you open up a book and you see the fonts, the chapters, everything, that's a formatted book. So that also is a step that as authors you have to take. Publish. You're done with the book, everything looks great, you upload it, published. Marketing, and I'm going to talk about that a little. It's so important because, and it's definitely something that I don't do, that I think is my weakest point, but it's so important because if you don't market it, if nobody knows your book is out there, that book might as well sit in the proverbial desk, right? Because, you're not getting it out there and nobody's reading it. So just to give you a little sense, an average historical romance that I write, 80,000 words. So you're talking about, 330 plus pages. So that's what an average book looks like. Contemporary romance is a little bit less, 50 to 60,000. And then you've got the epic novels, 150, et cetera. So that's what an average book looks like when you're writing. This is the importance of a cover. So these are my last 3 books, The Belle of London, Beneath the Moonlight Pale, and Beauty Has Her Way. I take, again, covers are important, and it's not just because we're living in the scrolling society, the Amazon 2-day Prime. People are just scrolling. They're not really paying attention. You've got to capture them. You want to have a cover that's attractive. You want to have a cover that speaks to the genre, and a cover that really conveys what you're trying to say in your book. You don't want to put a couple on the book. Obviously, if it's an Amish, that's not going to fly. So you really want to be cognizant that the book needs to be reflective and a really eye-catching cover. And there's another reason why it's important. So for me, I have been really successful and really lucky to be with BookBub. Now, these are just a few of the sites to promote your book, but BookBub is extremely selective. You have to have a certain cover. You have to be professionally edited. You have to have a certain number of reviews, and you have to have a certain rating. Now, again, my cover attractive, so I've been able to very successfully have, I think, over 20 BookBubs over the 10 years. And most recently, here's the power of BookBub. I did a May 27th BookBub featured deal on May 27th on The Belle of London. When The Belle of London hit that May 27th Amazon, it had 10 reviews. Today, it has 136. That's the power of BookBub. Now, BookBub is expensive. For that featured deal for one day, it's about $430. But any author will tell you, reviews are worth their weight in gold. Reviews are going to tell people, how's it doing? Does it have, 2 stars? Does it have 5 stars? What's its overall rating? The Belle of London right now is 4.3 rating. And again, 136 reviews. It might even be more now because I checked it this morning, but that's the power of BookBub and how a cover helps you. Fussy Librarian and Book Gorilla, these were just two I wanted to mention. There's so many out there. I mean, literally, if you typed in, book promotion, you're going to find so many. Fussy Librarian and Book Gorilla are definitely on the more not as expensive as BookBub. They're going to be, I'm guessing, $60 or $40 for that 1-day deal. But these are just some of the promotional sites that, again, if you're an author, if you're wanting to get the book out and get engage in readers, you have to promote. But be careful, because again, you're going to see a lot of scams out there. And I've talked to a lot of, because I've been in author groups and I've interacted. You just got to be careful. If it sounds too good to be true, probably is. Don't get swindled. Don't get scammed. So these are just some of the ones that I know are legit and that I've used myself. Social media. This is the day and age we're living in. We have to engage. I think it's especially important for those authors that have less of a book presence, and that they're maybe either beginning or in the middle of their career. But it's the necessary evil. I'll be the first to admit I'm not good at it. I know there are some authors out there that are like dancing on TikTok and doing the latest, whatever. I don't do that. I spend most of my time on Instagram, and on Instagram, I try to talk about, like such as today, I'm going to be here speaking. If I get reviews, I'll do a little mock-up on Canva. Canva is my best friend. If you don't know what Canva is, yes, it's great. It just helps you put up newsletters and stuff like that. But it's important to engage, and it's not just because you want to do like the latest fad, but you're engaging with readers. And again, as an indie, as a self-published author, it's your chance to really put your product out there and be engaging with them. And you are able to do that because on Instagram and Facebook, people can chat with you, they can talk with you, and you can really make your presence much more powerful. So these are just the three. I know there's others out there, but these are just some of the three that I know are being used heavily and that are really popular. But again, those social media, absolutely necessary. For me, currently, this is what I look like. I currently have 20 historical romance mystery novels. Like I said, I've been doing this since 2014. So I've been really proud and happy. I have a small little following. It's not great. It's not big. It's not. I'm not Stephen King. But it's really something that I definitely enjoy doing. As I told some readers that stopped by earlier today, they said, "Do I do this as a living?" I said, "Well, if I did this as a living, I might be eating cat food." But it really is something that I enjoy doing, and it's just something that really means a lot to me. And I always say I'm not trying to be Shakespeare. I'm just trying to tell a good story. And so if I interact and a reader comes to me and says, "Hey, I really love that," that's perfect. I love that. I have, as you see, I pulled this from Kindle last night from KDP. I have over 8 million pages read. Amazon does do that now. They do the pages. So this is my 8 million pages over my books. So that's something that I'm very proud of. And then talking about my BookBub, which I did earlier, this is again the power of BookBub. It bumped me to #1 of the enemies to lovers romance books. So again, that was I think a week or so ago. And as you see, I was at how many? 14? There are 56, 36. So again, now I'm at 136. So that's BookBub. But that's where I am, and I have 8,900 reviews and ratings over my 20 books. Just so you know, Amazon owns Goodreads as well, so they pull from Goodreads. So when you see those reviews on Amazon, it's pulling from both of those sites. So that's me. The future, what does the future look like? Some estimates show that by 2025, Amazon could take over more than 70% of the U.S. print book market. That's huge. And so that's when we're talking about what Amazon, the power, and why don't you go to Apple? Why don't you do, Barnes and Noble? That's why. So, Amazon is the big guy. Looking to 2025 and beyond, what does that look like? I didn't really talk about audiobooks that much. I haven't gone into that market, though I plan to, and you may be shocked to know that Audible's owned by Amazon. So that is something that I'm wanting to get into this year. So that is, that is something I've read somewhere that audiobooks are 30 to 40%, on the rise, and that people are listening to their books and not even reading them. So again, that's the market that we're going to. Artificial intelligence, huge. Not just for the design, because some of my books are designed and used, artificial intelligence, AI, but the content. Books are being written by AI. So I mention this because I think that's going to be a huge conversation as we move forward into that world. We have books that aren't even written by people. So I think that's going to be a conversation we're going to hear more and more about. And then again, like I mentioned, the surge of self-published books versus less traditional. So again, these guys that are just popping up that are just like you all in this room. You're loading up your books. You don't need a traditional publisher. You don't need an agent. You don't need anybody. You're just going to upload your books. Good on you. So that's what it looks like. Wrapping up, here's my email address. I'm at marketing at Nicola Italia, and my website's nicolaitalia.com. I'm on all of the social media, so if you want to follow me, I like to say professionally stalk. If you'd like to, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. So please follow me. I'd love to, and love to hear from you. If you have any questions, you don't want to ask them here, hit me up. Wanted to say thank you so much for listening to my panel. And if you have any questions, are we going to take them now or after Fred? Oh, so any questions, please ask them now. Thank you so much.